Today we're going to be discussing prevent. Please make sure to have a pen and paper ready as you will be asked to answer questions at the end of this video. What is prevent? Prevent is part of the government's overall counter-terrorism strategy, Contest. The aim of prevent is to reduce the threat of terrorism by stopping people from becoming terrorists or supporting terrorism and rehabilitating people who have already been exposed to radicalisation. Prevent has three main objectives. These are: tackling extremism. Extremism is holding extreme political or religious views. Combating terrorism. Terrorism is defined as the unlawful use of violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims. Reducing radicalisation. Radicalisation is the process by which a person comes to support terrorism and extremist ideologies associated with terrorist groups due to an extremist influence which may result in the vulnerable person committing extremist actions. Who gets radicalised and how does it happen? There is no way of identifying an individual who is likely to be susceptible to radicalisation. Anyone exposed to extremist views may be vulnerable to radicalisation and begin to display concerning behaviour. However, some studies show that radicalisation often occurs when people begin to search for their own identity or a community, meaning young people may be particularly vulnerable. All terrorist organisations need to recruit people to their cause. Some seek a few individuals, others seek vast amounts of people to grow and become insurgents. Group bonding, peer pressure and indoctrination are used to manipulate and encourage individuals into thinking violence is an appropriate response for a perceived injustice. Social media as a catalyst. Sometimes the criminals who recruit vulnerable people for terrorist activity use social media to do so. Millions of young people use social media every day. Unknowingly, we can be exposed to manipulated news posts, videos and propaganda. An individual's online interactions may increase their risk of being exposed to online radicalising content. Terrorist organisations use social media to contact vulnerable people and begin radicalising them. They also use peer-to-peer networks to stay in contact with the people they are radicalising. This is important as in most instances radicalisation begins online, however, it can also happen in any environment where vulnerable people are present. Aim. The aim of this video is to provide you with the knowledge of what prevent is so you can recognise the signs of someone needing support and how to stop yourself and others from becoming susceptible to radicalisation. What does prevent do? Prevent works to protect vulnerable people from being drawn into terrorism and ensures they are given appropriate advice and support. The prevent strategy has three specific objectives. These are as follows: tackle the ideological causes of terrorism. Intervene early to support people susceptible to radicalisation. Enable people who have already engaged in terrorism to disengage and rehabilitate. Prevent is important as it enables people to be aware of factors to look out for regarding terrorism. It provides us with the tools necessary to support ourselves and others when in environments where vulnerable people can be radicalised. Extremism. Extremism refers to an ideology that is considered to be far outside the mainstream attitudes of society. In our society, extremism is an active opposition to fundamental British values: democracy, rule of law, tolerance and respect and individual liberty. There are a few types of extremism, such as domestic extremism, individuals or groups conducting criminal acts of a direct action to further protest or campaign, for example, extreme right-wing groups. Violent extremism, individuals or groups conducting acts by any means to express views which justify or glorify terrorist violence, for example, ISIS. Radicalisation, a vulnerable person changing their perception and beliefs due to an extremist influence which may result in the vulnerable person committing extremist actions. Counter-terrorism. Counter-terrorism means promoting and delivering activities that are designed to prevent or stop terrorism. The UK government has developed a counter-terrorist strategy which is known as Contest. The aim of Contest is to reduce the risk to the UK and its interests overseas from terrorism so that people can live their lives freely and with confidence. Contest looks at all forms of terrorism to the country and its interests, regardless of if the terrorist activity began here or overseas. The strategy aims to catch and prosecute terrorists while also preventing people from becoming terrorists in the first place. There are 4 parts to the Contest strategy. These are known as the 4 Ps and consist of: pursue. Pursue is about stopping terrorist attacks in the UK. It is done by finding and investigating threats as early on as possible, disrupting the terrorist activity before it reaches the point of putting the public in danger, and wherever possible, prosecuting those responsible. Prevent. Prevent is about working with partners to stop people becoming exploited or radicalised by any form of terrorism. This is done by challenging people and views that promote extremist or dangerous behaviours shared by terrorist organisations, reducing the opportunities to exploit people, and generally reduce support for terrorism of all kinds. Protect. Protect is about reducing the risks for terrorist activities to successful or cause harm. This is done by protecting hazardous materials and reducing the risk of UK terrorist activities in crowded places. Through this work, the aim is to make the UK more protected against attacks and reduce its vulnerability to such attacks. Prepare. Prepare is about reducing the impact of a terrorist attack where the attack cannot be stopped. This is done by bringing a terrorist attack to an end and supporting people in areas suffering from the attack so they can recover quickly. An effective and efficient response will save lives, reduce harm, and support recovery. Other factors that can contribute to the vulnerability of a person may include peer pressure, external influence, social media, bullying, antisocial behaviour, family life issues, a lack of self-esteem, personal or political grievances. Intent factors. Not all people who become engaged in a group, cause or ideology go on with the intent to cause harm. Intent factors help identify the mindset an individual has that is associated with a readiness to use violence and enable us to assess what the individual would do and to what end. These factors can include over-identification within a group or ideology, them and us mentality, ability to dehumanise people and view them as an enemy, attitudes that justify offending, or willingness to use harmful means to achieve an end, and harmful objectives. Prevent within contest. Prevent is seen as very important within the government's contest strategy, as it is believed that simply arresting and prosecuting more people will not stop the threats we face. Prevent aims to stop people engaging with terrorism in the first place, which will help eradicate terrorism. How will we know the Prevent strategy is working? Reduction in support of fraud terrorists of all kinds in the UK. More effective challenge to extremists whose views are shared by terrorist organisations and used to legitimise violence. More isolation of extremists and terrorists operating on the internet. How to spot the signs. Spotting the signs of radicalisation is vital in the process of preventing extremism and rehabilitating a vulnerable person. Things to look out for. Changes in mood, like increased anger or irritability. Disconnected from friends and family. Changes in appearance, clothing, wearing certain logos or presenting oneself in a certain way. Speaking a certain way, almost as if they have been told what to think and say. Increased secretiveness. Unwillingness to discuss their views. Radicalisation can affect anyone. It is important you know how to keep yourself and others safe. It is also important to remember that those who have already been radicalised also thought that they were not vulnerable. If you need support, we're here to help. Learning how to identify and respond to situations of radicalisation will make us more prepared to avoid dangerous situations. If you have a concern for yourself or someone you know, always reach out for guidance. Speak to your safeguarding lead. Speak with your safeguarding champion. Visit the links below this video for support. Thank you for watching.